like in my head, like if Luke Jr. sat down with us, like we could figure it out.
I don't know about that. Filters, which are a policy tool, the relay network filters, they work as a mild deterrent. But once people start bypassing them consistently, it's best to remove them for a variety of reasons.
Ultimately, as I said, I have a weird soft spot for Luke Jr., probably because I had that dream about him that one time. I thought if we just didn't talk about this, then it would go away.
Yeah, that's kind of...
Like, we're well overdue for this topic.
For this topic to just go away. Yeah, that's right. How do you know when something should be ignored and when you should fight it? Because I always see people fighting like the Knots people on Twitter. I mean, should we intro the podcast?
Whatever. We're in it.
Hell Many Podcast.
Welcome back.
HMP.
Welcome here for the first time. If you're a Knots enjoyer who's come to see our takes, which I'm sure you're not.
You might be.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope we're moving the needle on this conversation that's just going over and over and over again.
Yeah, and it's just a weird conversation that's been going on for a long time in Bitcoin. And one of the problems with this conversation is that there is a... What are we talking about? We're talking
about knots.
We're talking about knots. We're talking about filters.
We're talking about the spam.
Yeah. So what are filters? Filters are... First, we sort of have to talk about like what nodes are able to change.
Well, first we were supposed to talk about whether if you just ignore something and when are you supposed to ignore something and it goes away.
Right, but I feel like we got to give some background.
Okay.
So filters, sort of you got to understand the difference between policy and consensus. So consensus is the rules for what is a valid transaction in a block.
And so that's decided by the miners who mine the blocks?
No, that's decided by nodes.
Okay. I thought you have to run a node in order to mine.
You do have to run a node.
But they're just separate things.
You do have to run a node in order to mine, but nodes will reject invalid blocks, regardless of whether they are miners or not. So if a miner...
Okay, so all miners are nodes, but not all nodes are miners.
Well, it's kind of... so not all nodes are miners. That is correct.
Right.
Mining pools must run full nodes. So mining pools have to run a full node in order to create a block template.
Okay.
But individual miners do not actually have to run a full node.
Okay,
because
that makes sense.
They just get the template from the pool. They just trust that the pool is giving them a correct template.
And they're just the little guy.
They're just like, the little hasher. Exactly.
And it's going 42, 7, 9,
exactly.
8, 11.
Yeah.
And then the pool's like, nope. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the pool doesn't determine whether a block is valid or not. The miner knows that it's valid when they find a block.
Right. The pool is just putting together the block that would be mined, right?
That's right.
So the pool is like, okay, the collections are the transactions are coming in through the mempool, whether that's the public mempool or a private mempool, which we'll get into later.
I don't even think you would call it a private mempool. I think you just call it private transaction submission.
Private transaction submission.
Yeah.
Okay. The dark forest. The pool is the one that's saying like, okay, they're paying these fees and these fees and these fees. So let's line them up this way and arrange them this way. And that's when you look on mempool when you have all the blocks falling together.
That's right.
Right. So that's what the pool constructs. Yep. And the pool is running a full node.
The pool is running a full node. Yeah. Because the pool only wants to construct valid transactions construct valid blocks. Because if they were to construct an invalid block, all the other full nodes would reject it and they wouldn't get paid for their block.
Right. And they just fucked over all their miners.
Yeah. They just fucked over
all their brainless little guys that are just chipping away, guessing the numbers.
Yep.
Okay. So the miners don't have to run a full node, but the pool does.
Right.
And then the full node, like if you are a node runner, you're just saying like, yeah, I agree.
You are. But that is significant depending on what's behind your full node. Right. So if, let's say, the miners were to some miners were to get together and they were to create invalid blocks. Well, the full nodes would reject it, and that wouldn't matter for like little insignificant full nodes. But if you're the collective weight of like a bunch of Bitcoiners who are verifying their own transactions via their own full nodes, then it does start to matter.
Why does it matter? Like at what point does it start to matter?
Well, yeah, it's hard to say, but at the point where there's some sort of economic weight behind the nodes that are rejecting these blocks.
What do you mean by economic weight?
Yeah, it's hard to define. But for example, like, okay,
sorry to interrupt, but this is like when people talk about economic nodes.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
So An economic node is a node which is using their node's view of which blocks are valid to determine which transactions are valid, to determine whether or not they get paid. And the weight of that economic node is sort of like the weight of those payments. So for example, just to take an example, like Coinbase is running a full node that determines which deposits on Coinbase are valid. And so that individual node has a great deal of economic weight behind it. If I want to create a block, I certainly care whether Coinbase believes that that block is valid. And then you get all these other economic nodes. You get, Kraken, you get X, you get Y, you get Z, all these like exchanges. Those are individual nodes that have a very high economic weight. And then you also get nodes which each individually have a small weight. So for example, like just hobbyist Bitcoiners who use their full node to receive and send transactions or to verify their own transactions. Wait, let me get this point. Those nodes have a small economic weight, but cumulatively, they have a large economic weight.
But when you say economic weight, does that translate to like consensus powers? I don't really know how to say this, but like, is my node as able to like reject or form consensus as, let's say, Coinbase is?
No, because you're running exactly the same software or nearly exactly the same software, the same consensus rules.
I guess my question is, I don't understand this notion of economic weight.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that it's a fuzzy notion. It's not like there's somebody's tallying it or whatever, right? But certainly if somebody, let's say you just had, let's break nodes into like non-economic nodes and economic nodes. Okay, so let's say that all the economic nodes are up here. These are nodes that if their node tells them that a transaction is, if their node doesn't tell them that a transaction was mined in a valid block, they're not going to accept some kind of payment.
Because and what makes them economic nodes versus non-economic nodes is like level of activity or how much is flowing through that node or like verifying.
It's level of economic activity of that entity that they are verifying using their full node. Okay. So if I run a full node, let's say I'm a Bitcoiner and I run a full node, but then I go use, Coinbase or River or whatever, and I don't use my full node to determine which transactions I receive are valid, my full node has no economic weight.
And so okay, sorry, I know we're like harping on this, but I'm really just trying to. So then economic weight, is that like so it's okay. It's the fact that you're actually sending something from that node.
Usually it's that you're receiving something from that node. Sure. Because generally people use their own nodes to determine whether or not a transaction was received.
I guess what I'm not understanding is like, let's say, so the node would then be like the wallet that you're receiving it to?
I mean, I think let's make
I'm too confused.
Yeah, let's make this like a little bit more concrete. If nodes disagree on which blocks are valid, then you have a consensus split. And you have some nodes following one side of the consensus split and some nodes following the other side of the consensus split. Let's say A and B are the two sides of the consensus split. Now, the side of the split that has the majority or the vast majority of the economic weight behind it is ultimately much more important, right? The economic split that a bunch of Bitcoiners are following, as well as a bunch of very large exchanges, that side matters. You want to be on that side. You want to have your Bitcoin be accepted by those entities.
But the reason for that is what?
Is you want your Bitcoin to have value. Like, let's say I have Bitcoin on the on the side of the side. Let's say that, I think.
Yes. Okay.
If you have Bitcoin on a split, only those nodes who are following that split will accept your Bitcoin. Right. So I don't care about what the non-economic nodes say. I care about the group of nodes that I care about transacting.
Is this like effectively a hard fork then?
A consensus change would be
like, let's say for whatever reason, Coinbase says, okay, this block is valid. And then like the Joe Schmoes at home say, no, this block is valid. And then they continue along there. That's a fork?
That would be a fork.
Right.
Yep.
So then if I'm understanding you correctly, the concept of like economic nodes is like you'd want to be on the side that Coinbase is on because Coinbase has more Bitcoin.
They don't have more Bitcoin. but they're like an important transactor in the ecosystem. You
Sure.
might want to send somebody Bitcoin who has given you a Coinbase address, right? Because they're on Coinbase, right? So their economic weight is kind of like behind Coinbase's
Right. It
node.
would limit your ability to like send Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, essentially the currency forks into two different currencies, right? Being transacted on two different sides of this divide. And every currency has like network effects, right? We talk about like the US dollar having network effects. Those are the entities that will accept that currency. That's where the network effects come from. So the side of the nodes with the economic weight determine where the network effects are. And so you want to have Bitcoin where your currency has network effects instead of essentially on a separate chain.
Where it's just like you and a couple guys.
That you don't actually care about.
It's like a home poker game, you know, you're passing $20 around.
Exactly. Yeah. Bitcoin is valuable because there are many people on the network who will accept it.
Right.
Bitcoin is valuable because there are many people who will accept it. They'll give you what you want for your Bitcoin, dollars, whatever. And those people who are accepting it are ultimately using, who are accepting those transactions, they are using a full node to tell them whether the transaction was valid or not. And that full node might be their own transaction. In the case of I run a Bitcoin node, I give you a Bitcoin address. Or it might be the case of a exchange's
or like a
full node.
wallet or something.
Yeah, or a wallet service, right? In which case, like for example, if I give you River and I say, pay me at this Bitcoin address, I'm sort of delegating my economic weight to River.
Right.
So it's these recipients essentially that make Bitcoin valuable. And those recipients are behind various full nodes. You might have one-to-one where you have a recipient that's behind their own full node, or you might have groups of people or entities like exchanges who are using that exchange's full node. And it's a fuzzy metric, but you know, the value of the currency is the sort of aggregate of the recipients, right? That will accept that currency.
So I guess I feel like I've derailed us so much.
No. I think this is a great topic.
But when you say like, you know, a Bitcoiner who is running their own node and using it to verify the transactions, that means that like they have the full node and then they're also receiving transactions to whatever service it is that they're using to receive it, but that service, like for example, Sparrow, right? You can point it at your node, right? And then it's using that to verify that it came in, as opposed to just running it and being like, well, it's running.
Exactly.
But then like you accept all your transactions somewhere else. It's completely unrelated. That's me. So I'm a LARP.
Yeah. If you run a full node, but then you give people like Coinbase addresses and then you look at coinbase.com to tell whether or not you receive Bitcoin.
I just use whatever Sparrow like the
I think that's using some random Electrum node.
Yes, it's Electrum. Yeah. I remember that word. So I'm just using whatever.
I use Sparrow with it pointed at a local Bitcoin Core node.
Yeah, I could do that. I guess
it's not that hard.
Yeah, I just was like, I don't know. I was like, what if my node doesn't work right?
Yep.
Anyway, so okay, that is actually helpful for me to understand because I never understood what people meant by economic nodes.
Yeah, right. And it's fuzzy, right? I think maybe
I always thought they just meant non-mining. Like there's mining nodes and then there's non-mining nodes.
No, because not every node is created equally, right? Like if you have a lot of, I mean, it's sort of easy to imagine.
Well, but if you are accepting transactions to your node, you could be a little economic node.
Exactly.
Or big economic node.
Exactly.
But then if you're just running the node, you're not doing anything, then you're just me. You're just some guy.
Exactly.
You're useless.
Yeah.
What if you're inscribing with your node though? Then you're a little economic node.
Yeah, because inscriptions are Bitcoin transactions, and you're determining whether or not your inscriptions are valid by whether or not your node is telling you that they've been confirmed.
Right.
So yeah. Certainly.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So how did we get onto this topic?
By sort of talking about the difference between policy and consensus. So there's kind of two levers for, you know, validity. There's two sort of validity levers that people talk about. There's policy and consensus. So consensus is what is considered valid in a block. So if a transaction or a block in some way breaks policy, for example, like a double spend or a invalid spend of some kind or a malformed transaction or a malformed block, that will be rejected by all full nodes. They will just say, okay, that's not a valid block. And because of this, nodes have to agree on consensus. If two nodes disagree on consensus, then they start following separate chains and they're on different networks.
Right. So like every block, everyone has to agree exactly how that block looks.
Yep.
And then the way that the block looks depends on the mining pool construction.
Yep.
Right. But as long as it's valid by policy?
No, by consensus.
By consensus.
Consensus is the hard one. Consensus is everybody has to agree.
Yeah. Okay. So different mining pools or whoever's creating the block template can have a different policy for how they make it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But as long as it's within consensus, then everyone else will be like, yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah. So a mining node's policy, one aspect of policy is everything that each individual node or each individual entity can leave up to themselves. So policy includes like, well, you have a bunch of valid transactions. Which subset of those valid transactions are you going to try to put into the next block?
So there's like hard consensus rules and like soft consensus rules.
only use the word consensus
for hard
to mean those things that full nodes will reject a block.
So policy. So for example, I mean, again, we'll get into it in a little bit, or maybe now, who knows, like something like the op return limit. That would be policy, not consensus.
That's right. So
like there's a lot of wiggle room in the types of blocks or transactions that one could construct.
Yeah. So
theoretically,
there's kind of two main levers of policy. So one is what transactions will a miner put into a block, which is very similar to the other kind, which is what kinds of transactions will full nodes relay to other full nodes.
Mm-hmm.
So full nodes will only relay consensus valid transactions to other full nodes, but they might not relay some other kinds of transactions. So, and the op return is the classic limit. So Bitcoin Core by default will only relay what are called standard transactions. And standard transactions are a certain set of types of transactions.
Sorry, can you explain how relaying fits into this?
Yeah. So you make a transaction and you ultimately want to get it into a block.
And it doesn't matter to you who mines it.
Doesn't matter to you who mines it.
You just want it in the next block.
You want it in the next block. So what Bitcoin comes with is, instead of having to submit that transaction to individual miners, which would be undesirable because you'd have to submit it to like a bunch of separate miners, as well as making it difficult for a new miner to appear because they wouldn't be getting any of that transaction submission flow, Bitcoin has a peer-to-peer relay network where a Bitcoin node will connect to, I think like by default, 8 other random Bitcoin nodes. And when your Bitcoin node makes a transaction, it will send it to all of those 8 other Bitcoin nodes.
And this is the mempool.
The mempool is the set of transactions that nodes have seen on the peer-to-peer network that has been relayed to them.
So the relay network is like where the mempool is like flowing. Like the mempool is like the water or whatever. It's the transactions, and then it's like flowing through all these channels.
Really. Not really. I mean, like
I'm trying so
it's
hard.
It's like each individual node has its own mempool, which is the set of transactions that it's accepted over the relay network. So each individual network is sort of this pool, this mempool with transactions, but it's not the mempool that goes through the relay network. It's the individual transactions.
Okay, so everyone has their own mempool.
Everyone has their own
and then
mempool.
The streams are the transactions.
The streams
have
are the
transactions in them.
Yeah. So
the relay network is the stream.
That's right. So your node sends a transaction to these 8 other random nodes that it's connected to. And that node sends, each one of those nodes sends it to 8 other nodes that they're connected to. And very quickly it reaches every single node in the relay network.
Who made that? Do you know?
It came out with the original Bitcoin client. So Satoshi.
Wow. Slay.
Yeah, absolutely. So because the miners, all miners and mining pools also listen on that relay network. And so they eventually receive your transaction. And if it pays a sufficient fee, they will try to include it in the next block.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So which transactions you accept, unconfirmed transactions that are being relayed, not which are in a block, that is completely up to your local node's policy. Your local node can have whatever policy you want. So you can say, and so for example, the default policy of Bitcoin Core for a long time is that in order for a transaction to be relayed, it must have at most one output with an op return of at most 80 bytes. And that is what we refer to as the op return limit. So nodes are allowed to disagree on that limit because it's not a consensus limit. An op return of any size making it into the blockchain is valid. And nodes have, however, before a op return gets into a block, that's where they can have different limits. I can have a 40 byte limit. You can have the standard 80 byte limit. Somebody else can have a 100,000 kilobyte limit or whatever or up to like a megabyte op return. Those nodes can differ in the policy of what they will relay. But all of those nodes, even though they differ in their relay policy of op returns, if a op return makes it into a block, they're bound by consensus.
Right.
So
it's really just a question of whether you're like, let's say you do a weird transaction, but that's still within consensus. It's really just a question of like, does that get relayed or not?
Exactly.
And so like you were saying earlier, like the relay network makes it so that you don't have to be like, okay, I'm going to give my transaction to this miner and this miner and this miner. But if you had a weird transaction, that you could do that, right? You could just be like, here you go, guys. Who wants to do it?
And there are a bunch of different kinds of reasons that transactions are non-standard. So one is as a deterrent for things that are sort of by some value judgment undesirable.
Antisocial behavior,
such as op returns that are sort of frowned upon.
That look ugly.
Yeah, they look ugly. Another is transactions which are filtered for some sort of like a technical reason. So if I believe that if you construct a transaction that's 64 bytes in some super weird way, you can trick a light client into believing that they've been paid when in fact they haven't, because the light clients operate by these like Merkle trees. They don't get the whole block, and so you can construct a 64 byte transaction, which is a very, very small size in bytes, and trick a light client into thinking they've got paid. And so 64 byte transactions, if I'm remembering this correctly, are not allowed by policy for this like security reason. It's not that there are a bunch of people who want to make 64 byte transactions. It's that there are these nodes that could potentially be tricked by 64 byte transactions. Other things is that I think that there are certain kinds of very expensive to validate blocks, which are also blocked by policy, which like nobody really wants to make those transactions, but because they would take a long time to validate, they're filtered out of the mempool by policy. And then there's also things that are for to leave space for future upgrades. So Taproot version or SegWit version 0 outputs and SegWit version 1 outputs, which are original SegWit and Taproot outputs, those are like have a defined meaning and they have spending rules. But outputs with greater version numbers, so version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those are anybody can spend. And those are so that we have future room to use them to upgrade to new kinds
of reserving those, whatever.
Yep. But they could appear in blocks because they have to be able to appear in blocks, because in order to make it a soft fork to start accepting them, they have to be consensus valid.
Right. Like, so what you're describing is about...
But they're filtered by policy so that space is available for future upgrades.
Right. Like what you're describing with the last few things that you said with the like upgrade space and then the 64 whatever bit, whatever. That is stuff that if you were an individual mining pool or whatever, you could choose to have those transactions in it and it wouldn't break consensus, but it wouldn't be relayed through the like public mempool network or whatever.
The transactions wouldn't be relayed. Yeah. The blocks would be relayed.
Right. Yeah. It's like you as an individual miner or on a private mempool or whatever could choose to do those transactions if you wanted to.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. So filters, which are a policy tool, the relay network filters, they work as a mild deterrent, but once people start bypassing them consistently, it's best to remove them for a variety of reasons.
Is there an example of this that's not relevant to the inscriptions, whatever stuff? Like, is filters a new topic, or is this something that's
No, filters is an incredibly old topic. I mean, we'll get into sort of the timeline of the op return limit, but yeah, op return was, well, we can just say now. So op return has been present in Bitcoin Core from the first release in March of 2014. Before March of 2014, op return was non-standard, but in 2014, Bitcoin Core 0.9.0 made op return with up to 40 bytes standard. And that limit was increased in February of 2015 to 80 bytes. So for a long time, the limit has been 80 bytes. And so in fact, filtering has been a hot topic since forever. There's been all sorts of things, including other kinds of transactions that some people consider spam. For example, Satoshi Dice, which was a very, very popular gambling service where you would send Bitcoin to an address and they would either like double your money or not send you anything back with some probability. And so this was a very, very popular service which some people thought of as being spam. So this conversation has been going on for a long, long time.
But so the filters, I mean, I guess, okay, so is it only around, it's not only around OpReturn though. OpReturn is just a good place to stuff your spam. Like why is OpReturn the target of this if you could filter a lot of other different kinds of transactions?
Well, so the reason that this is happening now is because Bitcoin Core, as of Bitcoin Core 0.3.0, which is going to be released in October of 2025 this year, for various reasons has made OpReturn unlimited by default. So
sure, but I'm saying like it's like, okay, you know, initially it was there was no limit, right, when it first came out?
No, it was limited.
Okay.
But by the standardness rules, any transaction with an OpReturn was non-standard.
Okay, so it came out with the initial release, but it was non-standard.
That's right.
And then in March 2014, that was when it had the 40 byte limit.
That's
so like,
right.
why did that happen? I guess is my question.
That happened, I believe, primarily due to Counterparty, which was using bare multisigs. So if you don't have OpReturn outputs, you look for other places to stuff data in a transaction.
So OpReturn is just an ideal place to stuff data.
Wait, let me finish this.
Yeah.
So 2014, Counterparty wants to do stuff in Bitcoin, and OpReturn is non-standard of any size, and so they are using bare multisig, which is where you create an output that says, okay, this output can be spent by any one of or n of these m keys, right? But instead of real public keys, you put the data in those public keys. And for each public key, you can have like 32 bytes of data. Now, this is bad because that output can never be spent. So it just bloats the UTXO set forever. So OpReturn was created as a harm reduction strategy to try to get people like that to migrate to OpReturn outputs.
Okay. So they were like, this is a clean needle situation.
That's right. Because an OpReturn output, the function of the OpReturn opcode marks an output as being unspendable. So if you have an output that has OpReturn as its first opcode, you never need to add it into the UTXO set to begin with, because there's no way to spend that output. So a Bitcoin Core node sees most outputs, adds most outputs to the UTXO set, but OpReturn never gets into the UTXO set because those outputs are unspendable by consensus.
That's cute. That's nice.
Yep. So yeah, but spam has been around for a long time. I guess we can talk about, let me talk about why filters kind of don't work. So filters work as a mild deterrent, but once they start failing, then you start to get problems. So one is that ultimately, if there are people who are willing to spend money to mine, to get their filtered transactions mined, they will be willing to pay miners to bypass the public relay network. If the public relay network is filtering their transactions, they will go to individual miners and say, hey, include this transaction, I will pay you money. And miners will happily oblige. That's just their economic incentive. So in order for people to do that, miners will start having private submission services where you can send them, via email or via some like web form or post endpoint or whatever, your non-standard transaction, and then they will include it in their mempool. Now, this has a problem because it means that they're now getting, these large miners are now getting this revenue stream, which is not available to smaller miners. If you want your non-standard transaction mined, you will submit it to the largest miners, but like a miner that has 1% or 5% of the hash rate, you probably won't even bother submitting your transaction to that miner. And as a result, and also new miners you might not even know about. So if a miner wants to set up business, they'll be missing this revenue stream that's going to the larger miners, which makes mining less competitive. That's one bad thing.
It's like society, right? It's like you make a stupid rule to avoid an outcome that you see, and then you don't see the unforeseeable way that people go around the stupid rule.
Yep.
That's actually worse than if you just not had the rule in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing is that people start using other things, which bare multisig, which we talked about, which are these unspendable outputs, or unspendable taproot outputs, which are like invalid, where they stuff additional data. So these are bad. Oh, and there's also this thing called compact block relay. So what compact blocks do is that without compact blocks, you get a block header, and then you have to request every single transaction in that block. What compact blocks do is that they allow you to receive a small sort of sketch of a new block. and reconstruct it from the transactions that you already have. So if you already have all the transactions in a new block because you've seen them, they've gotten into your mempool, you will accept that block more quickly and then relay it on to other people. So why do we care about how fast people accept blocks? So if blocks propagate throughout the network slowly, this increases what is called the orphan rate, which is the rate of blocks that are sort of both fork at the same height and compete with each other to be the chain tip. And this happens when a miner is mining, miner A is mining, miner B finds a new block and starts to send it throughout the network. Miner A hasn't gotten the block from miner B, and so they're working on the old block, and in the time it takes them to get the block, they find a new block. And so these two miners have found blocks at the same height. One of those blocks is going to get extended first, and the other one is going to become an orphan, which is a block which is not part of the main chain. I believe the issue there is that one, it reduces security of the network, but two, it favors larger miners over smaller miners, I think.
Well, right, because it's like then whoever extends first gets it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So it's like whoever has more of the hash power is like more likely to then extend.
I think that there's like some subtle arguments, but yeah, that sounds.
All right, let us
like,
know in the comments.
Let us know in the comments.
Arguments.
Yeah, but I think that's right. So filters work until they don't work, and when they don't start working, then compact block relay slows down, which increases the orphan rate. You get private transaction submission, and you get worse alternatives like putting things in bare multisig or unspendable taproot outputs. You can't filter spam via consensus. If you go, okay, but like everybody has to agree on consensus, why don't we do that? The problem is that consensus changes are slow, and you would essentially be in like an arms race with shitcoin developers such as myself, who would be like, okay, well, you have a new consensus filter. Bitcoin Core spent like months like debating like a consensus upgrade, and now I'm just going to mildly change one of the ways that inscriptions are encoded in transactions and just immediately get around them. So you're not going to...
and it's probably going to become more elegant or less elegant and more messy over time, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like there's an ideal place for it to go, and then you say it can't go there, so then it goes somewhere less ideal and less ideal and less ideal. And just, at some point, you're just like littering in the national parks or whatever.
Exactly, yeah. And then you also might have to do things which are harmful for legitimate transactions. So for example, one thing you could do is you could make transactions have to be below a certain limited size, like 1 kilobyte or 5 kilobytes. Well, that would mean that certain kind of very large consolidations, which clean up the UTXO set, are now invalid via consensus. So you don't want to do that. So that's kind of where we are now. For a long time, op returns sort of act as like a mild deterrent. But we're at the point now that we have tons of private mempool submission, as well as a bunch of other ways of getting around the limit.
This is what like Slipstream is, right?
Slipstream is
like Mara's.
Yeah, that's Mara's private transaction service. We have new protocols that are being developed that use unspendable outputs. We don't want that. So October 2025, Bitcoin Core 30.0 is finally going to make op return unlimited by default.
Woohoo!
Yep. Well, I think woohoo. And I actually think that op return should have been unlimited from the very beginning. I don't actually think that, I think a small number, I don't actually think they even succeeded in getting Counterparty to migrate from the more harmful output types. I think the op return limit was too small for some kinds of Counterparty transactions. And so they did Counterparty transactions. Some Counterparty transactions did do bare multisig, as well as, what's it called? Stamps, which is like this other transaction which explicitly uses bare multisigs as sort of like a troll strategy to get people to pay attention to them.
Right.
So
shout out Counterparty though. They're always first.
They're always first. Yeah. But yeah, so they should have, op return should have been unlimited from the beginning. Also like, listen, like pay miners, like whatever, like we need the transaction fees. The block reward is halving every 4 years. It's a precipitous decline. I don't want to find out what happens if we don't have sufficient fees while the op return, while the subsidy is going to zero. Let's just open the floodgates, let people put whatever the fuck they want in op returns, and we'll get some fees and everything will be fine. So that's kind of where we are, except ever since inscriptions released, in January of 2023, this sort of anti-inscriptions, anti-spam fandom has started to get momentum on Twitter. It's just kind of like they want something to be angry about. They want something to like get on Twitter and like complain about. They want something to like make them important. You know, they want to like object valiantly to something. And that's why this gets all this attention. It's a lot of hemming
and hawing
and like moral arguments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this did actually this timeline and then also our episode with Adam Krellenstein from Counterparty did make me feel better knowing like this is an old debate that's just getting rehashed.
That's right.
And to that end, I don't know, this is maybe a question for you rather than a statement, but like, would we be looking at the op return being made unlimited if we didn't have this inscription debate?
I think possibly not, because I think that
like it seems like there's a revitalization around this topic.
Yeah, there's a revitalization around this topic, not from inscriptions, but from fuck am I talking about? Not from inscriptions, but from all these other Bitcoin L2s. I think
sort of Bitcoin renaissance.
The Bitcoin renaissance, yeah. In as much as inscriptions led to the Bitcoin renaissance, a lot of those Bitcoin renaissance L2 protocols are some of the ones that are, for example, doing things like putting outputs in unspendable taproot outputs, which leads to the unlimiting of op return.
I mean, it just seems like that the wrong decision was made before, right? In 2014, 2015.
I think so.
And so now, even though we're having to rehash the drama, it's like maybe we're doing it right this way around.
Yeah. And the reason that I think that the wrong decision was made initially is that I think you don't want to have people who are taken seriously, who are like part of the discussion, who are making these sort of value-driven, like spam kinds of arguments. Ultimately, I think these kind of moral arguments, and I have, you know, my own like ethics and morals, but I ultimately don't think that there's something that you can have technical discussion around or technical consensus around. Like some people are going to object to some certain kinds of transactions. Other people are going to object to other kind of transactions. Other people are not going to care at all. What's the sort of the consensus middle ground? The consensus middle ground is looking at it from a technical perspective, from a more sort of grounded technical perspective. And you don't want people going, these certain kinds of transactions are sinful, even though it's not possible from a technical standpoint to filter them. We must filter them. We must take a strong stand. And so I think you want to make op return unlimited from the beginning. So those people get upset back in February of 2015.
Right.
And they are all just, they go off, they run nuts.
They make their own BSV, they do whatever.
And we never hear from them again. And they're and the real developers don't have to put up with their stupid fucking divisive opinions. But what happened is that those people were like, okay, well, you know, the spam is limited to like 80 bytes, even though this is a totally ineffective solution. And now when this ineffective limit is being raised, then they get really upset about it.
Well, we're still so early. You know what I mean? Like in 2040, we could be happy that we figured this out now.
That's right. Yeah. So we want them to be running knots. We want them to not be bothering the Bitcoin core developers.
Mm-hmm.
We do not want them we don't want to like be confused about like, you know, which ones are the retards. So we want to make them upset right now, which is good.
Yeah, sometimes you need to purge.
You do. You need to purge.
But I don't can you explain like what knots is? I mean, I actually am glad that we spent the first 10 minutes or whatever going through policy, consensus, relay network,
only 10 minutes. How are we going to get through this episode?
No. I mean, like, you know, I'm glad that we like kind of broke it down because I have still not understood, like, is knots like a mining thing? Like it's like ocean mining.
Yeah.
Then knots is its own thing. Like I don't understand like what's the Luke Jr.
Yeah, the Luke Jr.
extended universe.
Yeah. So knots is a fork of Bitcoin Core. And today I did a little bit of research. As far as I can tell, the first release of Bitcoin knots was forked from Bitcoin Core, starting with version 0.12.0 of Bitcoin Core in February of 2016. I don't know what the original impetus for knots was, but I looked at some of the early commits and it seems to have been spam even then.
Yeah, right. So I guess he's been on his thing.
Yeah, so
it's not new.
Yeah, so in particular, Luke has been very anti-gambling. He's very like anti Satoshi Dice when it was around. And I believe that what happened is Luke wanted certain types of more aggressive spam filtering in Bitcoin Core. But Luke Jr. is a longtime Bitcoin Core contributor. And in 2016, early 2016, those spam filters weren't getting accepted in Bitcoin Core for valid reasons. Like, okay, Coin Satoshi Dice is just going to change their address or whatever. It's going to be this cat and mouse game that's going to take a lot of dev resources. So they're like, Luke, we're not going to put in your spam patches. And so Luke then forks and he does his own thing. Right. Since 2016, Knots has gotten a whole bunch of other patches. I forget how many, but it's like 2,000 or like 5,000 or some enormous number of patches. And it's a solo project by Luke Jr., who just maintains this massive set of changes on top of Bitcoin Core called Bitcoin Knots. It's only maintained by Luke, and Luke has a questionable security track record. His servers got pwned in last year or the year before that, and like all his Bitcoin got stolen.
I thought it was during COVID or something. I think it was a while ago.
Yeah, maybe. I forget.
I think it was before my time.
Yeah.
So I think it was like 2020-ish.
Yeah. I think it was later. I don't think it was 5 years ago.
It was before Inscription.
I think it was before I'm not sure. I don't think I felt sorry for him, which means that I think it was after Inscriptions.
It was not after Inscriptions because that would have been way bigger of a deal. I remember that was like lore that people contributed.
We should just check.
Just check. Actually, I'm curious because I need it for my Fed timeline.
Google.
That's when I think he got compromised.
Luke Jr. hacked. Why does it not tell me the date on this post?
They don't want
3 years ago.
Okay, so when was that? 22?
January 1st, 2023.
23?
Yep.
So it was right before.
Yeah, right before. Yep. Luke Jr., January 1st, 2023. My PGP is compromised and at least many of my Bitcoin stolen. I have no idea how. Help, please. #Bitcoin.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, anyway, so yeah, that's Knots. Knots has a bunch of like comedy features in it. My favorite feature is Knots has support for the tonal number system. The tonal number system is a hexadecimal number system. It's a base 16 number system. So instead of having 0 through 9, you have the digits 0 through 16. That was made by some English crank in like the 1850s or something because he thought that it was more logical. So if you wish to use the tonal number system, and the tonal number system, the units are great. It's like tam millibong Bitcoin. That's like a number of Bitcoin that you could have under the tonal number system. That's
how many Bitcoin you can get hacked for in January 2023.
That's right. Then you can use Bitcoin Knots and you can use the tonal number system.
It is, I have to say, the parallels between you and Luke Jr. are kind of scary.
What do you mean?
I mean, I feel like if one looks at something like Ordinals, and it's like, oh, and he came up with a numbering scheme for Satoshi.
My shit works. My shit works and got adopted.
Knots is getting adopted.
Tonal is not getting adopted.
Sure, it's just you've had a lot of wacky ideas in your day.
Yeah, certainly.
It does make me feel. I have a fondness for him in a certain way.
Yeah, I kind of do too. I mean, I think sometimes he's just the greatest to ever do it. Like one time he responded to people calling him crazy as saying, the only reason you would call me crazy is because of anti-Catholic bigotry. And I just love that. I mean, Luke, you're nuts. You have a lot of nuts ass opinions. There are many reasons and a very unpleasant online arguing style. There are many reasons that somebody would call Luke Jr. crazy aside from anti-Catholic bigotry, but I just love that. And also he would probably also be called crazy by Catholics because Luke Jr. is a sedevacantist.
Yeah.
Which means that he doesn't believe that the current papacy is valid due to the Vatican II reforms in the 70s or 60s.
To be fair,
I
like those people more than real Catholics.
They all have their merits. But Luke Jr. would certainly be called crazy by actual Catholics.
See, but I pull this card too. Anytime someone's mean to me, I'm like, they're sexist.
That's true. You do that.
It's a very feminine thing for him to do.
That's right. Very feminine.
Very gynocracy of him.
I wonder if Luke Jr. could be trans.
No, he has 10 kids. Although we've not seen the kids.
We haven't seen the kids.
So
no, people have seen the kids.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. People have seen the kids.
So he has 10 kids.
Yep.
He's firing on all cylinders.
He really is. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
6,000 patches, 10 kids, tonal number system.
Yeah. I have, like, in my head, like, if Luke Jr. sat down with us, like, we could figure it out.
I don't know about that.
If he just came on How Money Podcast, we could work it out.
Yeah. We can hammer it out. Yeah. One episode, one like real, like a 3-hour rip where we really get to the bottom of everything.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I would
Wouldn't
really...
it suck if at the end of that episodes we're like, oh my God, Luke is right about both the tonal number system and sedevacantism
and we have
Catholics.
to convert.
We have to convert.
I think that would be a fair trade. At the end we convert. I mean, I think maybe I would be interested to hear his spiritual theses, because it's interesting to see someone who is such like a autist dev type who's so religious ideological. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like God existing is like the least rational thing one could.
Right. I mean, I've
right?
heard rumors about Luke's spiritual theses. I mean, the one rumor that I heard was that one day he decided that he should take a religion, and then he looked at all the different religions and decided Catholicism.
Well,
was
I
the
think
most
that's what
logical.
all the sedevacantists do.
Yeah.
Because sedevacantists, you can't be raised sedevacantist.
Well, 10 people are raised sedevacantists.
That's
at least.
true. That's true. We are in the beginning of a new era.
Yeah.
But it's like, sedevacantism is new.
At the rate that sedevacantists are reproducing, by the year 2075,
We're
there
all
will
gonna
be
be
1 trillion
We're all gonna be
sedevacantists on the planet.
sedevacantists.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's like that is like the religion of like the online autists, like the people who feel
Absolutely.
they need to find God.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. Like, but I feel like I relate to that in terms of like my path to astrology.
Sure. Yeah.
I was also a technical dev type
That's right.
who had to find spirituality my own way and make my own rules.
Yep.
So I don't know. I would be curious to, I guess I'm just like curious about like, okay, obviously, I guess the rational argument for being super religious is the idea that religious life makes you a better person.
Sure.
Right? You need some moral framework.
Community.
Community. Although sedevacantists, I don't know if they have that. You can go to Latin Mass, but I don't know in that many places.
I think he has some weird church that he lives nearby that's a Sedevacantist
I mean, it
church.
must be, right? Because
you gotta drive for you gotta commute to that shit.
I mean, yeah, I think like...
I wonder if there are any Sedevacantist churches in California.
Oh, there must be. I mean, I think, Latin Mass is a thing.
Latin Mass is not equal to a Sedevacantist.
That's what I was going to say. I think
within normal Catholicism, I believe that you are allowed to do the Latin Mass.
Right. Yeah. I think there's Latin Mass like in every major city.
Yeah.
You could find Latin Mass. And then maybe a high percentage of the people that attend that are online sedevacantists. You know what I mean? Like it's a hot spot for finding other online weirdos.
Yeah.
But I'm not totally sure on that. But I think like there's not like sedevacantist churches.
No, there certainly are.
Are there?
Yeah, there are.
Okay. So like where?
I don't know, but I remember doing research. I think there's one in Florida.
All right, let's figure out what the nearest one is. Maybe we go.
Yeah, we should go.
I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
We could have a sedevacantist on the pod. Ask them what they think about knots.
Sure. Yeah.
Show them some interesting inscriptions. Be like, what does this inscription make you feel?
Yeah. Some Sage of the Regen inscriptions.
Yeah. Indeed. Deep cut.
So
anyway,
Knots has been around since 2016, but like
he was on his filtering shit.
Yeah,
then.
he's been on his filtering shit for a long time.
Good for him.
Yeah, and it's finally sort of come into the mainstream. Yeah, it's paying off. Now there's a bunch of people running Knots, and it's up to like 16% of the network or whatever percent of the network.
This economic nodes?
No, I don't think it is.
So what is 16% of the network? Like where is that coming from?
Of full nodes.
How do they know this?
You can sort of get an estimate by like observing your full nodes. Let me look at this.
So 16% of all nodes
full node
are knots.
Well, I just made up that number.
Whatever, but you know what I mean. Like it's just that statistic because I've seen the statistic around, and then I that's what I was trying to figure out because I know that knots was associated with ocean mining. So then I was like, is this miners that are doing this? Like, is that trying to say that ocean mining has 16% of the hash rate? Like that's what I was trying to figure out.
No. It's the number of nodes. Bitcoin Knots is 18% at the moment. Coin.dance is telling me. So it's not, that's the thing. It's not miners, it's not pools, and it's not economic
What
nodes.
Percentage of the hash rate does ocean mining have? Look that up. I'm curious.
Okay, sure.
Because that's a difference, right? Like if if all miners have to be connected to a node, and I guess it's a different statistic percentage of hash power. No, but it's kind of similar. I don't know. Whatever. Someone in the comments could figure this out.
Ocean mining hash rate.
I thought it was like at least
a
little bit. They get blocks.
So it looks like they have around 2% of blocks. They have 2% of blocks found in the last 1 week. 18 blocks.
Okay, so they get like slightly less than 1 block a day.
Yeah, but the problem is that even Knots allows miners to mine on different templates. So miners that mine for Ocean can select whether they want the full fat, full spam template, the reduced spam template or the aggressive like no spam template.
Yeah.
So we would have to look at that. I don't even think that I don't know what percentage of their blocks are the no spam blocks. But in any case, they're a very, very low percentage of hash rate. And as far as I know, the 18% of full nodes that are NOTs nodes are not meaningful economic nodes. There are probably some Bitcoiners who do run their NOTs nodes to like validate their transactions, but mostly these are people running NOTs as like a form of protest. I also think that they're confused and they think that running NOTs will ultimately do something. The problem with this peer-to-peer relay network where your node is connected to 8 other nodes, 8 other outbound connections, and some number of inbound connections is that you need to run a lot of nodes in order to start to slow down relay and stop things from getting into blocks. Like you need to have like 95% of the network or like 98% of the network. And even then,
we can do our part. We can get people running NOTs and maybe we can get there.
Yeah, maybe we can get there. Yeah. So they're running these nodes, but it's a pure like empty, protest. They're just doing it because they're angry.
This is also giving me Dark World Casey Rotomore because it reminds me of inscribers running full nodes, which like if you're inscribing, then you're like an economic node and you're verifying your inscriptions, whatever. But then I just remember like so many people right before the runes launch were just like running nodes because they thought they would profit.
People to do that. I mean, I was
but that's what I'm saying.
I was telling them to do it so they can make runes, so that it can inscribe some bullshit.
But they just were imagining like, okay, I'm gonna set this up and this is my ticket out of here. Like it's the same thing as like, all right, I got NOTs running, like I'm helping.
It's very cargo cult. It's very cargo cult.
Yeah, it's like
cargo cult. If we build it, they will come. And it's like you're building the wrong thing.
But that's where it's like, I don't know. I've never seen you and Luke in the same room together.
That's true.
You could be each other.
Have you ever seen me and Barack Obama in the same room together?
Not yet.
There you go.
I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It's like it's just equal and opposite. You know what I mean?
I guess. Jeez.
There's a spiritual thesis here. I'm sure the sedevacantists have something to say about this.
Yeah. Certainly.
Luke.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to hear more of Luke's spiritual thoughts.
Yeah, I think we're missing some like long form explanation by Luke. He's not a big podcaster.
Yeah, he's
been a small blocker for a long time, saying that we need to reduce the block size. So we need to cut the block size, I believe, to like 300 kilobytes. So cut it into a third of its current size.
Maybe he's right.
It's not right. It's not right.
I'm just saying, I don't know. I think if he just got more explicitly religious instead of like implicitly religious on technical topics, that could help a lot of people. You know what I mean?
I don't see why.
I think he would stop being so crazy in the arena that he doesn't need to be crazy in. He could start being crazy.
I think Luke is one of those online people who he can argue. He has unlimited time to argue. So him starting to argue about one other thing or talk more, it's not going to take away time from him arguing about other things. He's also done really funny things. I believe he was a package maintainer of Gentoo, the Linux operating system. And he unilaterally added porn filters to the operating system.
So he's doing this in other realms as well.
Yeah, and then people were
he's doing God's work all over the internet.
But then people were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And like reverted those patches. So he's kind of a nut.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, as I said, I have a weird soft spot for Luke Jr., probably because I had that dream about him that one time.
I think you should meet Luke Jr. and I think you'd get over that soft spot real quick.
Maybe, but I feel a lot more...
I mean, aren't you just saying this to be contrary and sort of an Erin like hot take kind of way?
I mean, I like that he's religious. I like that he's a character. I like characters in general. I would say that the person that I'm more angry at is like Jack Dorsey.
Why?
Because he's funding all this.
Yeah,
and it just feels so like really like, is he that stupid?
I don't
like. I think he is.
I don't get funding ocean mining. I don't get it.
But it's just Jack bankrolls all this stupid bullshit that doesn't make any sense, and it's just like, I feel like it's, do you know the meme where it's like the bombs going both ways and it's like my tax dollars somehow also my tax dollars. It's like Jack Dorsey funding somehow also Jack Dorsey funding. Like that is like the role that Jack seems to play in life.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so like weird. Like, I don't know. I just don't I mean, obviously like my mind with both Luke and Jack went to like Fed. I was like, okay, Luke got hacked for all his Bitcoin. He got compromised by the FBI, and now he's got a lot to lose. You know what I mean? Or a lot to gain. Now, upon sort of reflecting on Luke's timeline, I feel a little bit more like, oh, maybe he's just a lovable weirdo. Jack, I feel like Jack is more like, I mean, we know the FBI was working with Twitter at the time that Jack was in power at Twitter.
Sure. I mean, they were working with like every large social media.
Sure. But like, it's like Jack is not this like free speech, like bastion of like libertarian ideology, like Bitcoiners believe him to be. And if anything, like the FBI was working with Twitter a lot more than other places. Like that, the Twitter files were like pretty fucking bad. No one seemed to care about, you know what I mean?
I mean, I think you can kind of make the argument that the company just kind of got away from Jack.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe, right. And maybe that's what's happening now, I guess. But I
think maybe Jack is just not so super technically deep. Like he sees this new mining thing. He's like, okay, maybe that's going to decentralize mining. He funds it. Right. And maybe he's just not, into these arguments enough to kind of know better and be like, okay, this is kind of going to be a divisive.
But Jack invented Twitter. Like, shouldn't he know what's going on Twitter? Like, no, why would he not know? He literally created the thing. Like, I know Elon owns it now. That doesn't mean that
he's on Twitter 24/7.
But what is he doing?
Other things. He has a beard. He's meditates.
Making stupid.
He's combing his beard.
He's being like, "Hey guys, now you can message your friends over Bluetooth."
I mean, for example,
he's funding Blue Sky and Nostr, your tax dollars and also your tax dollars.
Yeah, but those are.
He's funding Core and he's funding Nos.
Blue Sky and Nostr are both good faith attempts to decentralize social media.
I disagree.
They legitimately are. They're doomed, but they're good faith attempts to decentralize social media.
I kind of feel like it's like he funds these projects that are, I mean, this is me getting like so conspiratorial, but I feel like he funds these projects that he knows are going nowhere to like distract everyone from doing something real. You know, it's like,
why?
Well, we just get everyone working on knots. Because I think he's compromised. That's my point.
He's not compromised. I mean, okay,
then he's stupid. I don't know. This is what I'm saying. I feel a lot more negativity towards Jack Dorsey than to Luke. Luke feels like I understand his motivations, even though they're irrational. And he's been doing the same thing this whole time. Jack's like hanging out with Jay-Z and like getting into the pedophile cult and then being like, I'm a libertarian. Like, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like Jack is really the enemy in all this, is my point.
Okay, well, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one.
Well, maybe you're getting funding from Jack Dorsey and that's why you feel this way.
Yeah, that's right. Jack Dorsey, hit me up.
Jack Dorsey is funding the inscriptions and also the ocean mining.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just like, whatever. All of it's so stupid. It just is like crazy to me that like of all the things that Jack could have funded, like why did he fund ocean mining? Like why ocean mining wouldn't exist without Jack?
Yeah, it is kind of confusing to me. I mean, I guess, Luke Jr. was involved. Luke Jr. is a longtime Bitcoin Core contributor. If you're not involved with Bitcoin Core development, you don't know that Luke Jr. has always been a weirdo.
Do you think Jack and Luke could sit down for 3 hours and have a conversation and come out of that liking each other?
No. Yeah, I honestly don't know what happened.
Like, it just doesn't make sense.
And I think it's unfortunate. Like,
if you've got proof about Jack Dorsey being compromised, put it in the comments.
Yeah. Also, the Luke Jr. body swap, which is another one of Erin's theories.
Yeah. Well, now I feel less like that after seeing. I'm like, no, he's been.
Yeah, I mean, I met Luke Jr. in a long time ago at one of the first Bitcoin conferences. We were sitting at the same table. And he is a mega autist. I knew from that 5-second interaction with him.
Yeah. Yeah, for Casey's referencing my theory that Luke Jr. got body swapped during COVID or something, and now he's like a Manchurian candidate. Yeah, which is also my theory about Craig Wright.
Yeah, it's your theory about basically everybody and me, to be fair.
Yeah. I did think about that. I thought that about you for a long time. I don't think that anymore. But
okay, great. I'm glad I beat the allegations.
If at some day I said some word, like some very unlikely vocabulary word, and then you like ding. Like, I wouldn't be so surprised. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, well, the signs were there.
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
See, that's what I'm saying, though. You and Luke, you kind of have this, like, interesting
I'd be surprised because you're already activated.
That's true. They already activated me at some point. No, I don't know. I mean, I have crazy ideas, too, Luke. You know, I can't hate on someone for their crazy ideas.
Yep.
So... yeah, it's just, I mean, whatever. It's obviously so disappointing that people on Bitcoin Twitter fall for this stuff, but I'm not that surprised. They're not very technical.
They're not very technical. They're not very smart. And I think it's an issue that has like moral salience that's easy for people to put into these moral terms that inflame people. And people just love shit like that. People love being righteous.
Yeah.
And it's also like, it's like Bitcoiners versus the shitcoiners. It's this insular sort of community that developed. And like with spam and shitcoining and whatever, I think the policy of Bitcoiners should just be kind of like, whatever, those fucking retards can go do whatever they want. If they want to pay the miners to fill up the blocks, who fucking cares? The financial transactions are also much smaller than the spam transactions. Like, listen, like if your financial transactions are not able to outbid the spam transactions, like Bitcoin has a fucking problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think it also is like, I can understand how as a non-technical person, you would find someone like Preston Pitch or like Stefan Livera or whatever, like more flattering to you than like listening to like Shinobi or something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I do think it's interesting because like you would expect that a niche that's built around internet technology would have dev type people, and of course it does, but it also has this like interesting kind of conservative Luddite, like anti-intellectual movement.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and I think it's like oftentimes stuff bleeds over where it's like that group of people, and I say that as like kind of a member of that group of people, they hate the figures of authority, the intellectual authority, right? And so it's like if you just have a bunch of technical influencer dev types on Twitter being like, you're retarded for thinking this. This is why you should believe me. It's like, yeah, you kind of do just want to listen to someone like Michael Saylor being like, you're the smartest person in the world for owning Bitcoin.
People also,
like no one's going to tell you that on the technical side.
People also can't think in terms of consequences. They just can't. They're like, well, rent for apartments is too high, so we should have rent control. Right. And then it's like, yeah, but then they're going to have like the rent controlled, the non-rent controlled units, the prices are going to have to increase for those. There's going to be less housing. Like they can't think in terms of these like knock-on effects. They just want to have the simple solution. And to them, filters are the simple one-step solution that work until you think about the consequences, until you think about slower relay, private submission, worse alternatives. Like they don't want to do that. They want to be like, why? Like we just do the thing, you know, we make the thing illegal, you know, that's going to work.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is. I mean, I guess it's good that Bitcoin Core is doing something finally.
Yeah, the solution is just letting it burn out. I mean, the solution is op return is being made unlimited by default in Bitcoin Core 30. You can still configure it if you wanted to. So you could still configure the limit. But I think the next step is going to be in a few months is just removing the limits entirely. So you can't control the limits whatsoever. And that's going to be another big pissing and shitting and crying and coming everywhere kind of thing. The Knots people are just going to be free bleeding all over the place. And then finally, I think they're kind of going to go away. Like Bitcoin Core will have made these changes. They can continue to run Knots. Nothing is going to be topical anymore because these changes will be receding into the past as already having been made. They have no power. There's no reasonable possibility that they are going to functionally change anything. And so they're just going to become less and less relevant.
How did the block size wars end?
The block size wars ended with, funnily enough, Luke Dashjr helped.
That's what I was going to, I mean, I brought that up partially because of that, but also because I wanted to understand the arc of how these like moments in Bitcoin discourse go. But Luke obviously like earned his stripes in the block size wars, right?
Yeah, that was a big part of Luke's sort of stripes earning, as you put it, as such a street phrase. Yeah. So what happened in the block size wars was core devs and a bunch of other Bitcoiners were like, okay, we're going to do SegWit, which comes with a 2x block size increase, or like an on average 2x block size increase around. And then everybody else, some other people were like, no, we want a larger increase. There was this so-called New York agreement, which was just by a bunch of like big Bitcoin companies like Coinbase and others, which said, we're going to do SegWit, but we're going to have a 2x increase on top of SegWit. So we're going to get about like a 4x or like an 8x or whatever increase. And then there was like, you know, tension. Everybody was like yelling at each other. And eventually the the people behind the 2X agreement kind of realized that like the economic weight just wasn't on their side, that they just didn't have enough oomph to push this through without extreme fragmentation. And the people who didn't want SegWit 2X started threatening to do what's called a user activated soft fork to activate SegWit without the 2X. And the large people who wanted SegWit 2X sort of capitulated at almost the last minute, and then that's where we are today.
Okay, so they were rational actors. Like they were like, we want this for rational reasons on their perspective, right?
Yeah, I think and
then when it didn't work, they were like, no.
Yeah, I mean,
this is an irrational thing that's playing out right now. That's why I was asking.
This is an irrational.
You know what
thing.
I mean?
It's
Like this
different.
is not driven.
I think that it's certainly not totally irrational to want SegWit 2X. Although I guess SegWit 2X is maybe also a hard fork, which there are reasons to prefer not doing that. So like definitely the SegWit, the big blockers were it's not fundamentally unreasonable to want
they were
larger
wrong,
blocks,
but they weren't crazy.
Yeah,
they weren't like Christ wants a block this size.
That's right. They did attract a lot of crazy people though. Like there were some crazy people.
Okay,
and then the nice thing about that was they like went away. They went off and they did Bcash and eventually BSV forked from Bcash, and now they're like totally irrelevant. So I think the most important thing.
We need BitChrist. You know, we need like the fork, the Knots fork. BitChrist.
Absolutely, yeah. If Knots fork, that would be
thing.
Awesome if they forked off into some minority change.
If they fork, you get your same amount of you would get the same amount of BitChrist that you have Bitcoin, right?
That's right, yeah.
So then, I mean, I think that's great because I would like for them to do that because then I could sell my BitChrist.
Yep.
And convert it to, I can stack even more sats.
Yeah, I don't think that BitChrist is going to get you a lot more Bitcoin. I think the exchange
Jesus
rate
is the most famous man of all time.
Yeah, but I mean, there's probably already been a Jesus ICO that has like milked that out. Like, yeah, I don't know if it's you know.
Well, if Jack Dorsey's funding it, you know.
That's right. Yeah, shout out Jack Dorsey.
Shout out Jack Dorsey. Yeah, so it's not quite the same in the sense that like the motivations for the block size wars were at least like rational actors to some extent. Even if they're wrong, they sort of had like rational reasons for wanting what they wanted. This is just
irrational. Like you can make 99% of the network. You can make Bitcoin Core by default filter these transactions. You can make 100% of the network filter transactions. Big miners are just going to take them by a private transaction submission, and you're going to make the problem worse.
Yeah. I mean, I think like so early on in the inscription stuff, which is not so much relevant to, but okay. So the filters were about inscriptions and about op return stuff.
I mean, Luke Jr. did around the time that inscriptions came about start to complain that they weren't being filtered by Bitcoin Core, and he wanted Bitcoin Core to filter those transactions, which was just ignored by Bitcoin Core.
Okay, because I remember like when
it's all been gaining steam since inscriptions were released.
Right, yeah, because I just remember when inscriptions launched and the kind of debate became reinvigorated or whatever, and people were talking about there's a bug. It exploited the bug. Right. Like there were people who maybe, I guess I'm trying to draw the relationship to rational actors that were on the wrong side of the block size war. I feel like there were people like Swan, like who are the guys that the Canadian people, Bull Bitcoin, whatever, those types that kind of like also did like a Luke Jr. like frantic thing, but it made sense economically for them to feel that way.
Because they were relying on low transaction fees.
Yeah, they were like, wait, shit, my business model is not going to function if we have these 300 sat per VByte transactions. We got to figure this shit out. Yep. And so and then you don't hear as much from those people anymore. I think the Canadian guys are still doing their thing, but like
they're still doing the thing.
Like Corey's not fucking talking about this.
I haven't heard about Corey in a while.
He's got bigger issues.
Yeah, I mean the Corey media empire is not doing good these days.
Well, right, but that's what I'm saying is like I think there was like the Swan Media Industrial Complex that like was essentially funded by Swan to be like anti-inscriptions for economic rational reasons on Swan's part. Right. You don't see that anymore. Right?
No,
those people are not really doing their thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've probably just gotten used to the reality of high fees, right? If they can't fix it.
This is where I would compare it to like the like big blockers, right? Where it's like maybe they wanted something for reasons that made sense to them or to their funders. Yep. And now it doesn't make so much sense anymore, or the like they lost, or they couldn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've kind of chilled out. And now we just only have like the religious zealots left, which is not the same as although I don't know, I guess there were religious zealots, you said, during the block size wars.
Certainly. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying, me, I like to try to figure out like where has this happened in history before, and like how can we use that as like understanding how things will play out now.
Yeah, I mean, I think on any side of these sort of conflicts, you do get like ideologues. You get people on either side who don't understand.
Yeah, there are crazy BSV people.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like
totally
crazy.
Yeah, one thing I think is unfortunate is Bitcoin BSV blocks are relatively small these days. But why don't people just spam BSV with endless like shit transactions to make the blocks big to slowly increase the cost of running a BSV node? That's what I'd be doing if I had a lot of free time. Is I'd be
well, people don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it's
a
just
fate
irrelevant.
Worse than death.
Yeah.
What else? Is there anything else we're supposed to talk about?
No, we're done. Oh, ask me what Bitcoin knots is.
Oh yeah, how did Luke come up with the name knots?
So Luke took a biblical passage which does not mention knots at all, paraphrased it so that it does mention knots, and he says that's what he named knots after.
See, that makes me feel like he's MK Ultra.
So you're like,
doesn't
Luke Jr.
Doesn't that feel like there's something weird there?
Somebody was literally like on Twitter, like, what was knots named after? Luke said it was named after this quote, which I'm paraphrasing slightly. And in the quote that Luke has paraphrased, in Luke's paraphrased version, it says that Jesus like beat the money changers out of the temple with
it's an anti-Semitic
whip of knots.
Wait. Little
and then it's like, well, what if you look at the original thing? Like, surely his paraphrasing couldn't have added the word knots, but it did. Luke just added a word to a paraphrase.
Yeah, and I didn't realize. Like we were talking about this on the subspace yesterday, which is why we sort of were clued into this. But I didn't realize that. So the situation going on is like Jesus supposedly like made his whip with the knots in it, and then he hit the Jews.
Money changers.
Okay.
Were the money changers Jewish?
I thought that was the thing with like,
I don't remember.
Christians weren't like, wasn't that the purpose of Jews at that time?
I'm not up on the Bible.
Oh, but they didn't even have Christians then. I thought there was something with Jews where like
that's court Jews who were allowed to lend money.
I was like, I thought you told me about this.
But that was later. That was like
when there were Christians.
It was the Christians who weren't allowed to.
Okay, so the money changers is just like, I guess if they're all Jewish, then you can't really, whatever. Anyway, so whatever. There were the money changers in the temple, and Jesus tied the knots into the whip and he hit them, which is controversial, right? Because Jesus was supposed to be a pacifist. He's supposed to be nonviolent.
Yep.
So people think that didn't even happen.
Yeah.
They're like, that's a misreading.
Yeah.
But also, he doesn't even say knots.
It doesn't
in the
say
original
anything
passage.
about
so
knots
it's really
in the original
complicated.
Passage. Yeah.
I would love for Luke to elaborate on that.
Sure.
That honestly, this is what I'm saying. Bring him on How Money Podcast. Let's talk about that.
He would never go on How Money Podcast. Like not in.
What if we agree
1
not
million
to?
Years.
What if we agree not to debate spam, but we are like, okay, what's your interpretation of that Bible verse? Like, why does that Bible verse speak to you so much, and what made you feel like you had to?
You should watch some videos of Luke being interviewed, and you would change your mind about interviewing Luke Jr.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm a pretty charming and charismatic individual.
Luke has been interviewed by some charming and charismatic people, and it didn't go well. I'll show you some videos after the.
They asked him about the Bible passages?
No, they asked him like softball questions, and he was like, I don't know. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. Well, first mistake is trying to engage with him technically when you should be engaging with him ideologically and spiritually.
It's true. You probably would get a lot more excitement out of him.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, okay, if you're someone who's running knots and you've watched this far, just stop, I guess.
Yeah, just
or
give
keep
it
going
up.
if it's really important
Whatever.
to you.
I mean, the nice thing is that it doesn't matter. That's the nice thing, is that it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does feel like I'm like, just get me in a room with these people.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I talk to them, I could change some hearts and minds.
Maybe. I don't know.
Twitter. No, actually, I will say.
I mean, they probably haven't seen a woman in a while.
Luke has 10 kids. He's seen a woman.
I mean, it's probably
at least 10 times.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah, minimum.
No, I will say this is actually a point that I have been thinking about for a while is, okay, I've been having these conversations recently with people that are sympathetic to the shitcoiner side, like us being the shitcoiners, sympathetic to us or like on our side of things. And whenever we're talking about the not stuff or Luke Jr. or whatever, they do this thing where they say, oh, it's actually okay. Like, you know, I don't feel so bad about it because when you talk to these guys like Mechanic or whoever in person, they're actually really nice. And they use that as like a way of saying like, oh, this is a good thing. I think that's like the worst thing. Like, I feel like if I met Mechanic or Luke or whoever in person and they were exactly the same as on Twitter, I'd be like, okay, that's ideological consistency, right? Like we would argue, but it would be consistent. The fact that these people sit behind their screens and they talk shit, but then when you see them in person, they're like losers that like can't stand up for what they believe in. Like that's the worst kind of person to me. I think like you should be as confrontational on the internet as you are in real life. Like, I don't think you should have this like weird thing where like when it's just you and your computer and you're just like typing on your screen, you say all this shit that you would never say in person. Yeah,
I mean, I think you should be civil in all scenarios.
Well, that's my point, right? It's like if you wouldn't say it in I mean, this is like fucking cyberbullying 101, right? Like if you wouldn't say it in person, why are you typing it? Like, I just think it like shows so little integrity. Like, I don't think that and there's a lot of people that are like that, right? Like there's most people that have really insane Twitter personalities are not like that in real life. It does kind of sound like Luke's maybe like this in real life, which is kind of cool of him.
No, I think Luke is just unarticulate.
He's kind of inarticulate on Twitter though. He just says like, no.
Yeah, liar.
Yeah.
His favorite response.
So like maybe he's the same.
Yeah.
But I just think it's such a bad quality if someone is like an absolute asshole on Twitter and then you meet them in real life and they are like, oh no, like whatever, it's no big deal. It doesn't like actually it does fucking matter that you're like that on the internet.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know? I agree. I think they shouldn't be people shouldn't be assholes on the internet, but people's brain just turns off.
I just think they're like, I think it means that they're like assholes inside, but they're like too shy and scared to be assholes in real life.
Could be.
Shameful behavior.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. If you're mean on Twitter, you should be mean to me in real life too.
Yeah.
And see where that gets.
Yeah. She'll free bleed all over you.
Yeah. I'll start a fight. And then the men that are around me, like you or Raph or whoever, are going to have to finish the fight.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'll be like, let me at him.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I think we're out of topics.
I mean, I'll start verifying my transactions with my node.
Yeah.
That's my big takeaway.
Yeah, run knots.
I'm gonna be a little economic node after this.
You should, and use Sparrow so you can point Sparrow to your little node. Yeah.
Yep, my little node.
Yep.
Okay, well, good luck, everyone.
Yeah, good luck. And run knots or don't. Who gives a shit?
Bitcoin Core for Bitcoin Core 0.30.0.
It's actually just 30.0. I wrote it down wrong.
Okay, congratulations, Bitcoin Core for 30.0.
Yeah.
Proud of you guys.
Yeah, proud of you guys. Putting your foot down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good for them. Okay.
Cool.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.